Spanish senators have just finished an inquiry, which we heard about when they visited our parliament the other day, Ambassador, which shows conclusively the involvement of Russia in that whole operation in our referendum. And I think...
So last week, when Macron was here in Britain, Nigel Farage really had his nose pushed out of joint because he was not given any access to have an audience with Macron. The leader of the Liberal Democrats did, Edward Davey, and Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Tories, and Nigel Farage, because he feels that he's Prime Minister in waiting, even though he's only got 4 MPs. I know it's jumped around a bit because he's lost a few and then gained another one and then lost another one. But anyway, by the by, he feels he is King Kong and he should have an audience with Macron. So he was upset about that. And there was some hijinks in Parliament when he got up to speak at Prime Minister's question.
The main reason this country wisely voted for Brexit back in 2016, and that included millions of Labour supporters, is because we wanted to take back control of our borders so that we and we alone could decide who comes and settles in our country. Does the Prime Minister understand that that demand today is even greater than it was back in 2016, and that we demand, the country demands, that you say to the French President, will you shut up?
Don't be so disrespectful.
That you say to the French President, we will not accept undocumented males across the English Channel, and that you are not dictated to by an increasingly arrogant, anti-Brexit French President.
But later on, when he spoke to Sky News, he really let something out of the bag about the migrant crisis. Nigel, and I'll play you the clip in a minute, Nigel said he didn't think that the deal would work, first of all. But then he conceded. He said, even if it does work, this is Brexit Britain. We didn't vote to do deals with the French president. So he confirmed to the world that he doesn't actually want to stop the boats. Of course, if you think about it, why would he want to stop the boats? Because moaning and enraging people about the boats is helping his popularity in the polls, because he's all about the age of rage, about harvesting grievances. In fact, making grievances and then make people complain about them and feel angry about them, like Alf Garnett, and then get them to vote or think they're going to vote for Nigel because they...
Steve Carbromley, 4 million unemployed, they're flying his cousin in.
They say, oh, only Nigel knows how to sort out everything. Only Nigel knows how to deliver Brexit. Even though Nigel has never delivered anything apart from chaos. Nigel thrives on chaos, and he confirmed that in this clip.
I don't believe it'll work. I believe the numbers will be very limited indeed. And even if it did work, where's the advantage to us? This is Brexit Britain. We voted to take back control of our borders, not to accept a deal given to us by a French president.
The French president, though, was blunt, saying Brexit had brought the UK problems dealing with small boats, not more control. Leaving the EU had left the UK with no way of sending migrants back to France legally. Now, he and Sir Keir were dealing with that.
Nous devons surtout adapter la réponse au Brexit.
We need to adapt our response to Brexit. The British people were sold a lie that the problem was Europe. By leaving a legal black hole, Brexit became the problem. And with the government, we are being pragmatic, and for the first time in 9 years, we are bringing an answer.
The reason people say that Nigel is the most successful politician of our times is because he's been successful in conning people to get them enraged about a particular topic, Brexit, migrants, and then pitting people against one another. All of the while we're distracted, Nigel benefits. All of the time we're arguing with each other, Nigel benefits. And what does Nigel want? Nigel wants to get rid of the welfare state. Nigel wants to get rid of our rights because for very wealthy people and powerful corporations, they want to return to a time when they ruled the world and they could do as they like. They don't want to have consideration for any weakness in society. So, which is why there's an offensive on people claiming benefits for disabled or child cap or anything else. What they want is an autocratic state, because big business can just do as it likes. And when we were in the European Union, we were protected. We had laws which protected us. We're still in the ECHR, but they will be pushing now to try and get us out of the ECHR, the European Convention of Human Rights, which was set up specifically to stop the rise of an authoritarian madman taking control and killing millions of innocent people. That's what the ECHR is about. But they're trying to get people enraged about the ECHR as they did the European Union, and it's working because enough people want to think that Nigel's on their side and he's in their tribe and he cares about them, but he doesn't care about them. He cares about the people who fund him, and the people that fund him, fossil fuel industries and hedge fund billionaires. It's not about ordinary people. And sad to say, there is an alignment, or it certainly looks like there's an alignment between Keir Starmer and Nigel Farage. They are working in tandem, pulling the Overton window to the right, which is why we've heard mad things from Starmer. And it's why he's doing stuff to enrage people, because he's working with someone called Lord Maurice Glucksman, who is, to all intents and purposes, like Nigel. He says he's economically left-wing, but socially conservative. Maurice Glucksman is exactly the same as Nigel. They are absolutely on the same bandwagon. They just are using a slightly different argument to try and pull views over to the right, get people enraged about people on benefits, people who are autistic, taking money and they should be working. It's all of these things to get people mad, like Alf Garnett. And we really have to try and work against this. And the only way that we can win this is by uniting, because they want to divide us. They want to scapegoat so that we're arguing with each other, and then they get away with it. They get away scot-free. And that's why we have to not fall for their tricks. We have to unite together. And the only way we can get a country which is fair is by holding hands and agreeing to rejoin the European Union.
The European Union, I'm very sorry about that. And indeed, a lot of the evidence has come to play is that it was a disaster. But on top of that, actually, the movements behind it in order to achieve that result were, in my view, highly suspect. And I think we're still looking into that. The Spanish senators have just finished an inquiry, which we heard about when they visited our parliament the other day, Ambassador, which shows conclusively the involvement of Russia in that whole operation in our referendum. And I think people were therefore conned. They were given a whole lot of lies and deceit. So it's very difficult. Some people are still standing firm. We were right. We were right to leave. But if you take a look at all the polling has gone on recently, it's perfectly clear that most people in this country would probably like us to be back where we were before 2016. How do we get there? First of all, let's just get a few facts here. Everybody goes on and on about our great success post-Brexit in being able to negotiate trade deals in a way that we couldn't do it before. In fact, of course, we are in a situation right now where we are struggling to replicate the situation that we had before, where we had so many trade agreements with so many countries based on the rules of the EU, which we subscribe to. And those rules in the EU, of course, included all kinds of standards standards in relation to quality of goods, standards in relation to food, safety, and so on. And I think the our government now is in something of a dilemma. On the one hand, it wants to increase trade, but on the other hand, it really does have to abide, in my view, with that dynamic alignment that we're talking about with Europe, with those same standards that the European Union has, because after all, that is, regardless of all these other places we make trade with, it's still our biggest market. And so consequently, I'm very happy for that to be the case. And that would certainly be the case, as far as I'm concerned, with the United States, where the government, the Prime Minister, has made it clear that we are not going to finalise a deal with America that in any way diminishes the various standards that we believe are right and equivalent to the European Union ones which we've been part of in the past.
But I think I'm probably the only person alive who served in all 4 legislatures. If you include local government, I was originally a councillor in Northumberland, and then an MP, of course, then an MEP, and now a member of the House of Lords. So I think that's quite an interesting record. But the European element of it, that was the 17 years that I represented Yorkshire in Brussels and Strasbourg, was an enormously interesting time in my life. I mean, I'm not, people regard anyone like myself, who, of course, I suppose I was a supporter of remaining in the EU, therefore I'm now the Ramona, and I'm regarded as inevitably therefore a left-winger or something like that. The truth of the matter is I've never been those things, and nor have I ever been a Europhile.
Yeah.
I've always been quizzical and very questioning over the whole activity of Europe. And when I was in the European Parliament, I led one of the major Eurosceptic groups for quite a long time, involved in getting set up and being involved with it in the leadership. So, I was very active in protecting British interests in the European Parliament, but in particular in my area as a lawyer, my interests have always been in the field of justice and home affairs. And I am therefore one of the people that drafted quite a number of the European pieces of legislation, which were then shared with the United Kingdom, and particularly in the area of sharing data between criminal agencies to try and deal with crime, such as passenger name records, which was a way of obtaining information from airlines of people traveling, so we could detect terrorists at a very early stage. European arrest warrant, which I know is controversial, but I think by and large was a very good way of pulling a whole lot of criminals out of parts of Europe that we couldn't get them out of before we had it.